Hello Marlborough, my name is Ryan Maliar and I'm so excited to bring you another episode of Marlborough Minute. This is a platform for people in our community to make their voices heard, and I have a group with me today. Some faces you might recognize from another episode that we did a month or two ago, maybe it was even longer, and then a few new faces as well. Let's welcome everyone to the show. If you could just go down the line and introduce yourselves.
I'm Chip Feazel. I'm here from Westboro, and I'm sort of an advisor to the Marlborough group.
And I'm Rosemary Owen. I work with the American Parkinson Disease Association, Massachusetts, and the Information and Referral Center at Boston University Medical Campus.
I'm Jim Joubert. I live here in Marlborough. I'm the support group chairperson, and we've come a long way in a year.
My name is Carol Raiano. I'm from Marlborough, and I'm one of the group.
And I guess we should have said from the beginning that everyone is connected in some way, and that common connection is Parkinson's disease. And last time Jim was here on the show, he was talking about how he had just started to get his roots going and starting to form a Parkinson's support group here in Marlborough, and he was going to start running meetings out of the Marlborough Senior Center. So I'm hoping that today we have a follow-up with some news about how that's all going.
Well, it's going quite well. We started with no members, and now we've got 8 to 12 people come as their schedules allow. And we were in the Labor Day parade last Labor Day here in Marlborough, and we're doing quite well.
So the Labor Day parade must have been an opportunity to get some more exposure. I know you were hunting down that car that you rode in last year. Were you able to find that vehicle?
Not that car, but we've got another one lined up, so we're anticipating cooperation and help.
And Carol, you weren't here last time that we did an interview, so tell me a little bit about yourself and what brings you here today.
Well, I also have Parkinson's, and I am a retired RN. I worked in the ICU at Newton Wellesley Hospital. Saw a lot of Parkinson's there, too. I saw the advertisement on the Council on Aging for a Parkinson's group, so I said to my husband, let's go see what's what. And we went, and we met, and Jim was sitting there. He goes, Carol, I haven't seen you in a year. I've been looking for you. So it was fate. I walked in at a good time, right?
Was had by all.
Yeah.
Now, are you a Marlborough resident?
Yes.
So the meetings are at the Senior Center.
Mm-hmm.
Are you regularly involved there, or is this particular group something that gave you a reason to venture out and meet new people?
A little bit of both.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit of both. I've met quite a few new people with quite a few problems that they don't get answers to, and that's what our job is, to help them.
Well, tell me about that. So people are meeting, they're getting questions to answers, there's some camaraderie and some bonding that happens as well from what I'm guessing. What is your experience overall, and what sort of questions are people looking for answers to?
Well, there's a lot of people with this, but not a lot of answers. A lot of people are afraid to tell anybody that they have Parkinson's. I don't know why. How about you, Jim?
When I'm out walking the streets of my neighborhood, I use the approach, I'm Jim Joubert and I got Parkinson's, and it's not contagious. And they start giggling right away, and at that point I know I've broken the ice.
I know our camera person was giggling right over here. You got Alex to crack a smile, and that's pretty difficult. He's very stoic. So why do you think, what's the sort of stigma that you experience that you feel like you need to break the ice?
Well, number one, it's a stranger walking up to your car in the middle of the street. You don't know what their intent is.
Well, why are you walking up to strangers' cars is a bigger question.
I want to meet people and introduce them to the fact that Parkinson's is an issue. Marlborough has a population of 35,000 plus, and there's about 12 of us who are actively involved in the group that meets at the Senior Center. There is another group that meets down at New Horizons, but they're on their own.
Now, I can only imagine that statistically, that's a very small percentage of people that actually have Parkinson's in the Marlborough community that are reflected in this group. Rosemary, you advocate for Parkinson's on a much larger level. Are there any statistics on how many people worldwide, what percentage of the population has Parkinson's disease? I know that's a very big question to throw at you.
So statistically, they estimate it to be about 1.7% of people over the age of 65 have Parkinson's. And so it's quite a large number of people. That's quite a big number, but it's not huge. But it means that there's kind of this in between. We need to have a lot of services because there's quite a number of people with Parkinson's, and but sometimes those services aren't always there because it's not quite as prevalent as, say, Alzheimer's disease. But it is the second most prevalent neurodegenerative disease.
Tell me a little bit more about the organization that you work for and the work you do.
Sure. So I work for the American Parkinson Disease Association. We're the largest grassroots organization for people with Parkinson's. So we have a local Massachusetts chapter, as well as an information referral center at Boston University Medical Campus. So people can give us a call anywhere in Massachusetts or in northern New England, and we can help connect them with some services and connect them with community groups, great support groups, and things like that. And then our Massachusetts chapter does lots of programming. So today we have some programming up in Winchester, Massachusetts, and actually coming up in May 19th, we have an optimism walk, what we call our optimism walk. So it is a local community program where people from all over Massachusetts are coming to, it's a fundraiser for the American Parkinson Disease Association Mass chapter. But it's also a great opportunity to see some people from all over the state who have Parkinson's, families, lots of kids, people of all stages that are there to support people with Parkinson's in their lives. So.
How have you been involved with Jim's group, and Chip is part of a group as well? How are you a part of that?
Yeah, so...
How did they rope you into getting here today? You're a high level. They got you out of Boston, out of the office today to be here in Marlborough.
Yeah.
So how do they call upon you?
So our office is open to anyone who wants to start a support group or any kind of community group for people with Parkinson's. And so we love to support people who are providing great services for people in their community. So we have, like I said, at our Information and Referral Center, there's myself and Kathy Thomas, who's our nurse coordinator, and we work together to help get people who want to start a support group or places where there maybe aren't support groups. We try to start new support groups. So we try and connect all of those people together and get some training and all of that kind of thing. So.
Chip, maybe you can tell me a little bit about your group and maybe the similarities or differences between the group that Jim has now started.
Sure. Our group has about 18 to 20 people. After COVID, we were 5, and slowly people have come back or come to find us.
Your group is in what location?
In Westborough.
Westborough.
We meet once a week, and we are very interested in answering the questions people bring, because everybody comes scared, everybody comes with questions, and they're probably in denial first. All of us start in denial that, well, I don't have it, or it's not going to get me, or it's going to be not as bad as I think it is. Or the other end of the spectrum, I think it's horrible, I'm going to die soon, it's just the end of the world. And we try and calm them down and find answers to their questions, because a lot of these questions have simple, rational answers. And we try to provide those to give them some facts to deal with it. Because yes, it has a progression. Yes, we're going down this path together. And here's some helps of things you can do to make it easier on yourself and your family and your caregivers.
When you have these meetings, are you acting as an expert? Are you bringing in experts to facilitate these conversations? Or is it sharing the knowledge that you've gathered along the way from your doctors and specialists?
I'm certainly not an expert on this disease. I'm an earth scientist. I don't know much about medical topics at all. But I do read and I listen, and I do have access to some of the specialists through programs like Rose is describing. We get videos, we get speakers, we get all kinds of ways of connecting with the people who do have the answers.
You had mentioned the ways that people react when they're initially diagnosed, and I'm curious if each of you would open your hearts and souls to share with our audience what it was like when you were first diagnosed. If we could start with you, Chip.
Sure. I come from a Parkinson's family. My dad had it. I watched him go through 40 years with the disease, and my sister now has it. So I thought, well, this is clearly a genetic thing. It turns out I have none of the genetic markers for Parkinson's. So we probably had some common environment back when, maybe 50 years ago, that is now expressing itself as Parkinson's. For me, it was horror, I think, because I'd seen this face of Parkinson's and I didn't like what I saw. So coming to a support group for me was a wonderful thing because I find these people who are normal people. They're people just like me, and being in the room with them is very comforting. And I realized that it's not the shock that I thought it was going to be. I was in denial, I'm sure. I walked in the room and hear people who deal with it every day, and they can express what they're going through. They can give me resources. They can tell me how to search on the internet for adaptive devices. There are all kinds of people supporting me in my support group. So I really wish I had a medical background, but it turns out I don't need one that badly.
Jim, would you be open to sharing your initial reaction when you were diagnosed?
I had no idea what it meant. I didn't know that I had it. What my primary care physician just said one day when I came in, walk down the hall and come back. When I come back, he says, "You have Parkinson's." And I went, "Huh? What's that?" But the bottom line is that Parkinson's manifests itself in so many distinct yet similar threads that you may not think you've got it, but there's a possibility. And the people that I've come in contact with, both with Chip's group in Westboro, the people I've come in contact with here in the Marlborough Community Center here, has been very, very supportive, very worthwhile, very helpful, and very caring. It means a lot.
It does mean a lot. Carol, would you mind sharing your experience?
Yeah, I was initially misdiagnosed.
Oh.
They told me I had essential tremors, and they put me on medication, and things weren't getting better. They weren't getting better, so I went to a neurologist. Thank you, a neurologist. And the minute he looked at me, he said, "You have Parkinson's. You've never had anything else but Parkinson's." So that was kind of a shock. Although my husband and I, we go for walks, and he says, "Something's not right. You're not walking right. There's something wrong." And we finally got a diagnosis, and here I am. I've had it for 20 years.
So how long did it take you to get that diagnosis correct, from when you first noticed things until you finally had that correct diagnosis?
Probably about 10 years.
10 years. Rosemary, I'm wondering if that's something common, misdiagnosis, and if in a broader sense, people with this disease go undiagnosed.
Yeah, so, I'm an information referral coordinator, so I cannot speak as a medical professional. Just my disclaimer.
You just give off the vibes of being the most professional person in the room, more so than I am, and it's the blazer. That's what does it.
It's a superpower.
Yeah.
But I am on the information and referral line a lot, and so we receive a lot of calls from the general population that's talking about Parkinson's. Oh, I've just been diagnosed, but we hear a lot that people feel like they've had symptoms for a while before they're diagnosed, or that they were diagnosed with something else and then later find out that it's Parkinson's. Some of that is because Parkinson's is a clinical diagnosis, so sometimes it takes a little while for some things to manifest. But also, we always recommend people see a specialist, like a movement disorder specialist, which is a special kind of neurologist, to clarify that diagnosis. And in Massachusetts, we're very fortunate that there are quite a number of specialists.
Yeah. I wonder if we could maybe almost role play for a minute and say this is a group meeting at your facility, Jim, one that you're putting together. What's the sort of flow of things? Is there a meet and greet section at the beginning? Is there a speaker? Is it very casual? How does it go?
In all candor, it's more casual than anything else, but we do a great deal of interchange of information back and forth between us. Some of our women that have come to the court, to the class, have been a little reluctant with males in the room. I can't explain that, but that's an issue. And we cover a wide cross section of the community, so we have to be receptive to adapting to their needs rather than what we think are the needs. In Westboro, we've got a gentleman who's from India, and at times it's difficult to understand what he's saying, but he eventually gets the message out, and we greatly appreciate his contributions. Me, I'm just a bump on the log trying to help the thing go down the path.
You said how even within the group you're trying to be adaptive to other people's needs.
Yes.
How can the community overall, Marlborough or Massachusetts or the world, be more adaptive to those with Parkinson's? I know that's a big, broad question, but does ADA compliance go into it, or yes?
I met him on the baseball field watching my grandchildren, and I looked over and he was sitting all by himself, and he was shaking with his Parkinson's. So I went over and I sat down, I introduced myself, and I said, I have Parkinson's also. I thought he was going to fall off the chair. But that's how I know Jim.
And a good relationship it has become. Yeah. It's funny, like she said, when she showed up to our meeting this spring, or last fall, I says, I've been looking for you for almost a year. I remember meeting her, but I couldn't remember her name.
Sure.
And we reconnected, and her husband, Rob, is my technology specialist, and what a godsend he's been. But we do a lot of exchange of information about what we're experiencing versus what Carol's experiencing or what Chip has experienced. Yes, I remembered your name eventually.
I was going to make a comment that we spend a lot of time trying to mask our symptoms. We go into a restaurant, we don't want people to see us shaking. We do this and that and the other. But in these support group meetings, we can be ourselves. And I walk in the room and I see people just like me. And they may have different expression of the symptoms, but they've all got it. And they're shaky when they stand up, and they may use a cane or a walker. But to be in that environment, it's automatically supportive.
Yeah. And just what you were saying earlier, Carol, is someone with this disease, you know very intimately the symptoms and the tells to see it in other people. Mm-hmm. You can't discriminate within your own community so if someone out there does have Parkinson's, it really does serve you to go and embrace the other people around you that you see that do have it. Just that one interaction on the baseball field was tremendous for you to be acknowledged and to have that commonality. Am I right or am I right?
You're right.
You're right on target.
Okay, just making sure.
In fact, one of the people who I know from church came up to me one day and said, "You got Parkinson's, don't you?" And I went to myself, huh? It was the fact that coming back, I would put a hand on each pew as I went down to make sure I had something steady to hold on to. Mm-hmm. But it's very exhilarating to come in contact with people who have similar symptoms with the same end result or close to it, and know that you can feel comfortable talking to them in the most basic of situations. It's very rewarding to be around people like this.
There's a certain pride that you all must have in yourself, or an ownership of your disease, that allows you to be here in a public forum on community television to speak about it, and I commend you for that. We talked about all of your initial reactions. What has led you to come to this solace, this point right now, that you are able to be more vocal about your diagnosis and be seen publicly? That's open. The floor is open.
Well, I try and focus in our group not on things we can no longer do, but on what we are able to do now despite the disease. And an example of things I can no longer do, power tools, chainsaws, all of those things that were a part of my life, they're just in the past now, and I have to walk away from that. But the things I can now do because of Parkinson's, I'm singing in 2 choruses because it's good therapy. I'm taking voice lessons over the internet from a woman on Zoom. So these are people I would not have interacted with at all. So they're positives in the people I meet in our support group. I wouldn't have met any of these fine folks without this disease.
Rosemary, I feel like that there's a lot more resource that I can pull out of you, and I can tell there's something bubbling that you'd like to chime in about.
Well, I think that, hearing everyone talk this afternoon and just thinking about, what's out there for people. Anyone who wants to connect with other people with Parkinson's, maybe a support group is for you, but maybe it's an exercise class, maybe it's a singing class, maybe it's anything like that. And always want people to reach out and try and meet other people and stay connected. So if someone is listening to this and wants to maybe join a new group or learn more about something like this, they can always give our office a call. Our number is 800-651-8466. People can give us a call and we can help connect them with a great support group or a great exercise program or a great singing program or anything like that. Whatever might work for them.
Wonderful. I think we need to just put it out there one more time. When does your group usually meet in Marlborough?
In Marlborough at the Senior Center every Tuesday morning from 10:30 to 12:30.
And is coffee provided?
Coffee's free at the Senior Center.
Excellent. That's what I like to hear. And once again, how about your group?
We meet every Friday at 11 o'clock at the Lutheran Church in Westboro. Coffee and donuts.
Oh, they've got donuts too. So I don't know.
And listeners, just so you know, you can go to both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Anyone have any closing remarks before we wrap up today?
Thank you for your help.
Thank you. It's been lovely having all of you, and thank you for sharing so openly. I really appreciate it. And that brings us to the end of another episode of Marlborough Minute. I'm Ryan Maliar. If you are a community group or you live here in Marlborough or have services or ideas that you think could affect the Marlborough residents right here, please reach out. I'd love to have you on the program. Take care.